Welcome to the Tree Book fan page. I'm Georgia Silvera Seamans, host of Your Bird Story.
And I'm Doug Still, host of This Old Tree podcast.
Doug, I'm so excited to hear your review today. Take it away.
Yes, I'd like to talk about The Nature of Oaks, written by Douglas Tallamy, published back in 2021. He's a professor of entomology and wildlife ecology at the University of Delaware. And what really intrigued me is that he looks at oak ecology through the eyes of an entomologist. He has a message to all of us, which is the single best thing you can do for your local ecology is to plant an oak tree. I've discovered I'm saying that to everyone I know. Oaks are large shade trees and they're important for their ecosystem benefits, but Tallamy's main point here is that an oak tree supports more species than any other type of shade tree in North America. By far. He breaks the book into chapters by month, starting randomly in October when he started writing. In each month, he makes unique observations about the life surrounding the oak trees in his own yard and neighborhood, which bring about ecological puzzles he seeks to answer.
When you say ecological puzzles, what do you mean, Doug?
So things he's just curious about. For example, how are acorns distributed? How do they get around? It's just, we always think of squirrels, right? But we find out that blue jays are one of the best long-range vectors of dispersing acorns, and they're able to hold 5 acorns in their gullet while in flight. And one really cool fact was a single blue jay can bury and cache over 3,300 acorns a year. But we also learned theories about why some oaks hold their leaves through the winter, or that the size and shape of acorns varies between oak species based on their evolution. One of my favorite chapters is January, when he observes a bird on a tree outside. It was a golden-crowned ringlet. And he wonders, what do birds eat in midwinter? If they're insectivores, where's their food? And it turns out that there are many moth species that overwinter in the caterpillar stage. They sort of hunker down on twigs right where they are eating late in the fall and kind of just like hide in the nooks and crannies of the twigs. The birds can see them though, and for them, food is all around us that we can't see. So here I am in my den looking out my window, and there's a big sort of rangy boxwood, and I see chickadees pecking at the branches all the time. And now I know that they're actually probably are little microscopic caterpillars or things that they're eating.
Does Tallamy talk about the human perception or misperceptions of insects eating the leaves of the plants in our landscapes?
A little bit. He doesn't really get into that too much. He's more of a let it be kind of person. One thing that makes the book enjoyable to read is that Tallamy connects oak ecology to his own life with anecdotes. There's this one passage I wanted to read for you. When I was young, my family camped at a lake in North Jersey each summer. We would set our tents up in late May and use them repeatedly throughout the summer before we dismantled the campsite in September. Back then, the tents were made of heavy canvas, and setting them up was no trivial task, particularly on a hot day. Although my father was a patient man, tent raising day often tested his limits. The proverbial straw that broke my father's back on more than one such occasion was the steady rain of green caterpillars parachuting on silken threads out of the large oaks that shaded our tent site. For some reason, he didn't enjoy it when one would land on his nose or float down inside the back of his t-shirt. In my father's eyes, this flush of spring caterpillars was simply a nuisance that we would all have been better off without. If my father had been a bird, though, he would have viewed this bounty of caterpillars differently. He would have understood that these caterpillars were not only breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they were the key to successful reproduction and exactly what made that patch of New Jersey forest a mecca for breeding birds.
Yeah, I've also read this book, and I think one of the sort of radical ideas in the book, actually, it's not a radical idea. I think one thing that Tallamy does really well in this book is to show us the intimate connections between insects, in particular caterpillars, birds, especially breeding birds rearing their chicks, and native trees like oaks.
Yeah, and he tells it in such a way that it doesn't feel like a list of facts. He brings it alive. And I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a book that reads as prose and narrative, but it's also an excellent reference book. Doug, do you recommend this book without reservation?
Without reservation. Absolutely, absolutely.
And listeners, if you like what you've heard, you can purchase The Nature of Oaks by Doug Tallamy using the affiliate link on this page. 10% goes to support our efforts, and 10% goes to support local bookstores. Thanks for joining us on the Tree Book fan page. See you next time.
And keep reading.